Going over IRS Form 1099-MISC, Miscellaneous Information. So this tax form is primarily used to report payments of a certain amount that aren't includable on other information returns, such as a Form W-2 or a 1099-NEC, so on and so forth. So this is going to contain a lot of different seemingly different miscellaneous sources of income, and odds are likely that you will never receive a Form 1099-MISC with entries in every single space. What we are going to do in this video is we're going to walk through each of these boxes step by step so that you can understand what situations might warrant that information and then how you would report that information on your tax return. So if you want to go into more detail, we do cover this in pretty great detail in our article. We'll put a link to that article in our show notes. So what I'd like to do is focus first right on the left side of this form. Basically, it's going to contain the taxpayer information for both the payer as well as you as the recipient. So in this case, our hero John Q. Doe, who received this Form 1099 from Acme Corporations. You'll see that the payer's taxpayer information number is completely shown while John Doe's taxpayer ID number is truncated. So this is John Doe's recipient copy. If you saw a copy of the IRS copy, which is copy A, that copy of the 1099 would have his complete social security number. So it's truncated in all versions except for the IRS copy. So what you would want to do is make sure that you have accurate information for whoever the payer is in case you need to contact them to correct the 1099. And then you want to make sure that your information down here is correct. If it's not, you should update that information on file with the payer as well as the Internal Revenue Service. You can update your files with the Internal Revenue Service by filing IRS Form 8822, which is the change of business form or change of address form, or IRS Form 22B, which is the change of address or responsible party form for a business taxpayer. So at the bottom, we have an account number field, which is not necessary in most circumstances unless the payer happens to have multiple accounts that they're paying the same recipient and they're issuing more than one 1099 to that person in the tax year. If that's the case, then the IRS requires that they use a separate account number, and you would see a Form 1099 MISC with each account number outlined. So we're going to go through each of these boxes on the right hand side, starting with box 1, which contains rental income information. Now, to keep this relatively straightforward, we've put in the same dollar amount in virtually all of the different fields. So the dollar amount is not necessarily the most important part. We're just going to take a little bit of time to explain the nature of that entry and how you would report it if you see this on your Form 1099. So in box 1, this contains rents. So this could be any kind of rental income to include real estate rental income for like office space. If there's a machine that's related to, if you rented out a machine or if you rented out pasture land to a farmer for grazing purposes. So the IRS instructions do state that if you rented machines, for example, sometimes you may need to rent out construction equipment and you happen to have to rent that out with a qualified operator. In that case, you would prorate the amount of that rent for the amount that would be paid for the operator and then the amount that's paid for the machine. So the operator's charge actually goes on Form 1099-NEC because you're paying the operator as a non-employee, and then the Form 1099 would contain the amount just for the machine rent. So if you're a recipient and you were the machine operator in question, this would be your part of the rent, except it would be on Form 1099 NEC. If you own that equipment, then you would see this amount on 1099 MISC. So you may actually end up with two different 1099s for the same set of invoices. If you are working with a property management company, then the property management company may end up issuing the 1099 MISC to the property owner. So if you own the rental property, then you would expect to receive your Form 1099 through the rental property, the property management company, or whatever professional service is managing your rental property. And this is for amounts that are $600 or more over the course of the tax year. So depending on the nature of that income, you would most likely report that on Schedule E, as with most real estate income. If you're in the business of renting, say, personal property, like equipment, things of that nature, you may be reporting this on Schedule C. So take a look at your tax situation. It's usually going to be either on Schedule E or Schedule C. The primary difference is that Schedule C income can also be subject to self-employment tax. So that income would also flow through to IRS Schedule SE. So you can calculate your FICA tax responsibility, whereas Schedule E reports supplemental income and is not subject to self-employment tax. So in box 2, we're reporting royalties. Royalty income in excess of $10 for the year. So, and this is generally reported on Schedule E as well, unless you're discussing royalties on timber, coal, and iron ore, which may be reported on a completely different tax form. 3 contains information on other income, and other income can be a wide variety of things. So this could be winnings for like prizes and awards, as long as services were not performed. If you won a contest but did not include a wager, like you weren't betting on the outcome, that would be reported here. If there was a wager involved, that would be on IRS Form W2G. You would also report it. You would also see payments for a deceased employee's wages if they were paid the year after the employee's death. Sometimes there might be accrued wages that get sent out in January. That would be included here and not on a Form W2 because you're not withholding for Social Security taxes in the year after that recipient passed away. Certain payments for Indian gaming casinos, certain payments for individuals participating in medical studies, and certain termination payments for self-employed insurance agents. So you would expect to see all of those on Form 1099 MISC. There are additional requirements for the insurance agent payouts, namely the payments must have been received from the insurance company because of services that person performed. They received the payments after their services were terminated or the agreement was terminated. They entered into a non-compete for at least a year, and they did not perform any services after they were terminated and before the end of the year. And then also you would expect to see punitive damages, certain compensatory damages from a lawsuit, things like emotional distress. So all of those would be considered in box 3. Box 4, you would see information regarding federal tax withheld if the recipient is subject to backup withholding rules. So in this case, John Q. Doe appears to not be subject to backup withholding, and that's primarily because he's given Acme Corporations his taxpayer ID number, presumably on Form W7, which is the request form for your taxpayer ID number. So it could be your social security number, it could be your individual taxpayer ID number, it can be an employer identification number, whatever it is, as long as the payer has your tax information, then they don't have to withhold tax. If they don't have your tax information, you'll see withholdings approximately 24% of your gross payments, and that's required by the Internal Revenue Code. The rest of these are very specific situations, so they're either going to apply to you or not apply to you. There's really not a whole lot of wiggle room. So box 5, fishing boat proceeds. Basically, if you're the fishing crew on a boat, you would expect to receive this from your captain if this was in excess of $600. So it would be proceeds from the sale of a catch or the fair market value of in-kind distribution to all of the employees, as long as they have fewer than 10 crew members on that fishing boat. So this would be also contain cash payments of up to $100 a trip, contingent on a minimum catch. So this would not contain any wages that are otherwise reported on Form W2. This is mostly issued to someone where the boat captain treats them like an independent contractor. If you're an employee, you're going to receive a W2. You're going to see all of the tax withholdings on that form. Box 6 contains medical and healthcare payments. You would expect to see this if you're a physician or a healthcare worker and you're providing services. So this is if you're a air quotes 1099 and you're a doctor working with a medical practice, this is where they would report your total healthcare payments. So you would generally report this amount probably on your Schedule C of your tax return. Box 7. If this box is checked, this means that the issuing company directly sold you $5,000 or more of consumer products for resale purposes. So if you're in the sales industry and you're selling equipment, for example, it can be a wide variety of different type of commissions. So like a buy-sell agreement or like a deposit commission. The only exception would be sales that were intended to be in a permanent retail establishment. So if you're working out of the store and you're making commissions while working in the store, you would not see this here. This would be for, sales that are made off-site. Box 8 is substitute payments in lieu of dividends or interest. So this would be at least $10 or more for any type of payment in lieu of either dividends or tax-exempt interest that has accrued on securities that were on loan. So taxpayers that see this amount would report it as other income on Schedule 1 of their tax return. Box 9, if you're a farmer, you might see this, crop insurance proceeds, if the proceeds were at least $600, unless you've been notified that unless you have notified the insurance company that you capitalize those expenses under one of the appropriate references in the tax code. So we spelled out a little bit more in depth in the article. You would report those proceeds, though, on Schedule F of your tax return if applicable. Box 10 is with regards to gross proceeds paid to an attorney, so $600 or more that were paid to an attorney in connection with legal services. And just like with box 6 with the medical professionals, you would most likely report that on Schedule C. However, you may have different arrangements. You would report only the taxable amount of those proceeds. Box 11, fish purchased for resale. So if you're in the trade of purchasing fish for resale, then you would issue this to everyone that you paid $600 or more for their fish. You have to keep records on that contain the date and the amount of each cash payment, but you only report the total amount on your Form 1099 MISC. And if you're receiving this, then that means you're receiving the Form 1099 that shows the amount of cash that you sold the fish for if you're in that business. Box 12 contains non-qualified deferral so non-employee, non-qualified deferred compensation under Section 409 of the tax code. And so if there's an entry in this box, that means that there's at least $600 that was issued to you under a non-qualified deferred comp plan. So you might not find an entry in this box. Payers are told in the form instructions that they don't need to complete box 12. But if you do see it, then that would show your current year deferrals as a non-employee that are subject to those tax code requirements, plus any earnings on either the current year deferral or prior year deferral. Box 13, if this box is checked right here, that means that the filer is reporting, making a report on this Form 1099 to satisfy a reporting requirement on foreign accounts under the tax code. So you might also have a filing requirement, and if so, you may need to file IRS Form 8938, which is basically a statement of specified foreign assets. Box 14 contains excess golden parachute amounts, which is for executives generally the total compensation of excess amounts as defined as more than the average gross income over the previous 5 years. So if your average income over the past 5 years was $500,000 and you receive a golden parachute amount of $1 million, then you may see that $500,000 reported here in box 14, and that is subject to an additional tax, up to 20% excise tax. Box 15 contains non-qualified deferred compensation that was included in your income because your non-qualified deferred comp plan does not meet the requirements of Section 409, and that is also subject to a 20% additional tax on the amount that appears in box 15. So if that amount shows up here, just know that you're going to be reporting that. You're going to have to calculate the 20% of that and then report that on line 17H of your Schedule 2, which is the additional taxes form on your Form 1040. And then lines 16, 17, and 18, they won't really apply for federal tax purposes, but if you live in a state where there's a state income tax, then you'll probably see some information here. So for John Doe, he lives in Texas. This is a hypothetical situation because Texas does not have an income tax. However, in box 16, you would see the amount of tax withheld. In box 17, you would see the state or the payer's state number. And then, so it might be like Texas and then whatever the state number is. And then box 18 would be the amount of income that tax was calculated on. So, and some taxpayers may be subject to income tax for 2 states, depending on their tax situation, and there's room in these fields for up to 2 states. So, you should expect to receive this no later than January 31st of the year following the tax year in question. For example, for 2023, taxpayers should expect to see their Form 1099s no later than January 31st of 2024. So that's all we have for this video. We break down some of these in a little bit more detail in our article. You can check out the article by hitting the link in the show notes. You can go straight to the website, teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS Form 1099-MISC, and you'll see our article appear there. There are also a lot of other tax forms mentioned in this article. We're going to put links in the show notes to all of those, as well as videos that we've done on those tax forms. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. And if you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions, comments, or if there's a topic that you would like us to cover in a future video, please don't hesitate. Put a comment in the comment section. And other than that, thank you very much and have a great day.